Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophie and Wilf, good morning from me as well. There's been more explosions this morning. We're going to bring you the very latest.
Ongoing strikes this morning on Beirut after Israel issued evacuation orders for 16 towns and villages. The IDF says it's targeting Hezbollah.
The war in Iran enters its fifth day. The Israeli military saying it launched a broad wave of strikes also in Iran overnight.
The strained relationship. President Trump lashes out at Sir Keir Starmer for his reluctance to help in the war.
So we are very surprised. This is not Winston Churchill that we're dealing with.
After a strike in Oman, Britain charters a commercial flight to get stranded citizens out later today, prioritising the most vulnerable. Good morning. Well, we begin now in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, where we've seen an increasing number of explosions happening just this morning.
Those pictures have been coming into us over the course of just the last couple of hours, and it comes after Israel's military issued an evacuation order for 16 towns and villages yesterday. And we also heard explosions in Tehran overnight, where Israel says a broad wave of strikes has begun. Let's get the latest from on the ground. Cordy Lynch is in Tel Aviv for us, but first to John Sparks, who's in Beirut. And John, as the time has passed during the course of the show, there have been more and more explosions there. What is the very latest?
Well, Wilf, you know, they're filming those images from a hilltop that overlooks the southern suburbs of Beirut because nobody can go in there. It's just too dangerous. And I can tell you that that section of the city, and you can also see it behind over my shoulders, that part of the city is getting a real pounding. We are seeing an escalation, a real intensification of this conflict. And there's no front line. There is no front line in Lebanon. Our team have counted about 7 strikes since 3 a.m. The Israelis have issued some evacuation orders. We've seen streams of smoke going up and this loud roar echoing through the buildings behind me as well. I can also tell you that the Israelis have hit a hotel in East Beirut as well, the Comfort Hotel. It's a Christian area. This is not an area that they would normally target, and I think that tells us that this conflict is moving to new areas as well. I think in that case, they may have been trying to target a member of Hezbollah or a related group in an assassination strike. And the whole thing with evacuation orders, and I should tell you that the Israelis have issued about 24 evacuation orders covering areas right across Lebanon this morning. They don't always do it before strikes. Particularly the feeling in Lebanon is when they're trying to take people out, when they're aiming to take out the Hezbollah leadership or related groups, they don't give those warnings. And the problem is the people who live nearby, they don't get those warnings either. And I think that's why one reason why we are seeing the southern suburbs behind me, huge swathes of southern Lebanon, they are emptying out right now. People are getting out of towns and villages, and they are looking for a safe place to be.
John, thank you so much. John Sparks reporting there for us from Beirut, where, as John was saying, it's been an escalating situation, an awful lot of strikes that we've seen this morning alone. Let's bring in Cordelia Lynch, who's in Tel Aviv for us. Cordelia, we've seen Israeli strikes in Beirut. We've also seen Israeli strikes in Iran. What is the latest?
That's right, Sophie. Overnight, there's been a broad wave of attacks by Israel on Iran, targeting its military and its intelligence infrastructure, and that part of a broader pattern of escalation by Israel. We have also seen significant movement too within the Strait of Hormuz. There's been a very significant impact on the oil markets. There is instability, there's concern, and there is no timetable at the moment. And I think everyone is trying to assess the next steps from here. So I think this is a kind of a pattern of anxiety setting in here, people trying to second guess what Israel and America's next maneuver might be. Now today, the funeral of Khamenei will take place. Israel has already vowed to kill his successor. At the moment, the front runner to take over from him will be his son. Meanwhile, we see a mounting death toll. One human rights agency putting it at over 1,000. The vast majority of people killed so far have been in Iran, over 550 so far. And one really important point and thing to consider and look at now, a developing situation, is speculation about possible movement of Iraqi Kurds into Iran. Now, US officials have discussed this as a possibility. They are having discussions with Kurdish forces there, in a way trying to support some kind of active rebellion, possibly in the next few days. Now, that would be laden with complications, complexities and challenges, sparking perhaps a prolonged war and a civil war that would take place inside Iran. And I think it just gives you a sense, really, that this isn't a conflict that is going to be resolved quickly.
Certainly doesn't seem that way, does it, at the moment? Back to John. John, I'm interested for your take, if you could pick up on what Cordy alluded to there, but is the latest reporting about what's going on inside Iran's leadership, and almost ironic, isn't it, if the Ayatollah successor is in fact based on a bloodline and it is in fact his son, or do we just not know yet? And I guess the broader point is, who's driving things in the meantime? Is it still the hardliners?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, I think we can fully expect the regime, the system in Iran, to pick one of its own. I think that is an entirely safe assumption on our part to make. They're not going to will themselves out of existence, whatever Trump or Hegseth say, whatever American and Israeli officials say about the matter. They're going to stay put, and that ultimately demonstrates the limitations of what the Americans and the Israelis are trying to do. They cannot remove the regime, its system, the Revolutionary Guard, the army, the Basij militia. They can't remove them from the air. And that reminds me of a conversation I had a couple of days ago with a woman who, we did a story about her nephew in Iran who had been killed during the protests. And she messaged me to say that she had been in touch with her family members in Iran. And they said they were delighted that Khamenei had been killed. But the fact was, the Revolutionary Guards, they were out on the streets with their guns. They were stopping people. They were checking their IDs. They were asking to go through people's phones to see what people had been filming. The regime, and I think it's really important that we remember this, the regime is in total control of the streets in Iran, in Tehran, the capital, and surrounding cities. And what Trump has done, what Netanyahu has done, what their overwhelming military and firepower has done has not changed that dynamic. And it's unlikely to change it unless they put troops on the ground. And then we see a whole different magnitude to this conflict begin. So I think that's the ultimate problem, though, for the ambitions of Trump and the rest of them in terms of regime change or regime alteration, whatever it is that they're spelling out at the moment. They're ultimately limited in what they can do in Iran.
John, it's such an important point. And also, if Donald Trump is almost calling on citizens of Iran to kind of rise up and find a leader, well, if you are in a nation that is still so controlled, it's easier said than done. Cordelia, I wanted to squeeze in one more question to you as well. It's so good to have you both here with your expertise this morning, because we've been talking about the aims here of the US and of Israel. Do you think they're entirely in lockstep with each other, or do you get a sense that actually they both want something slightly different from the conflict?
Yeah, I think it's a really important question to ask, and there could well be clear water between the two. We've seen them, haven't we, initially? Certainly in the optics, the messaging, they appear to be in lockstep. This was a joint action, the two working together to make this decisive move, seizing an opportunity. But look, Donald Trump is a president that vowed to his base from the beginning and has continued to promise he will not be involved in these messy foreign wars, in regime change, in protracted conflicts. He is a man that likes surgical strikes, that is able to move in quickly, but then to remove America from those conflict zones. But here, he risks a far more stretched out conflict. And I think that is something that Israel, that Benjamin Netanyahu has much more of an appetite for. And that's where we might start to see some kind of political frisson emerge, because Benjamin Netanyahu now sees an opportunity to reshape the whole of the region. I was speaking to one former intelligence operator here who was saying, look, for months they've been talking about making this move into Lebanon. They now feel like they have moral top cover, that they are able to use it as a pretext to move into vast swathes of southern Lebanon and to ultimately completely crush Hezbollah in the way that they weren't able to in that 12-day conflict back in June. So they really, I think, are eyeing up something potentially over weeks and months, an extended war, whereas I think we will see in America a lot more pressure coming from Donald Trump to try and wrap these things up, and pressure too from his base, because there is fallout, there is concern that this isn't a war that his supporters want to see America wage.
John, Cordy, thanks both so much. Stay safe, and no doubt we'll be back talking to you throughout the course of the day here on Sky News. Of course, the question for many British citizens in the region is when can they get home if they want to? And the government is chartering a commercial flight out of Oman this evening to get British nationals home. Emma is at Heathrow for us this morning. And Emma, some flights have been able to leave already.
Yes, indeed, although they are not scheduled flights. These are flights that have been put on by airlines for existing customers, so repatriation flights. And actually, there have been flights arriving here at Heathrow already, also in Manchester. There's another due to land here in Heathrow and one in Birmingham later today. Also, and they're Emirates flights. Also, Etihad are operating a repatriation flight from Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. Those first ones I was saying about coming in from Dubai. And we know that British Airways, although not operating from the UAE, are going to be bringing a flight back from Muscat in Oman this evening for existing customers on a first-come, first-served basis. And it is from Muscat that the British government are bringing people back on the first of these chartered flights. It's going to leave at around 7 o'clock tonight. The vulnerable will be prioritised when it comes to that first flight. But we know that the UK government are in discussions with other airlines about putting on more of these flights to get people back. We know 130,000 people living in the area, in the region, or on holiday there, have registered with the UK government, and there are many thousands stranded there who were on holiday, maybe in transit from a stopover, maybe have been on holiday elsewhere, for example, Thailand, and they've been stranded without their bags. So there is desperation. And also, it's been obviously a terrifying time. You know, people holed up in their hotels with booms, the sound of big booms outside, jets flying past. So a very difficult time, and people having to shell out a lot of money. A 4.5-hour taxi drive people have been paying for to get them from Dubai to Muscat. But the overall message is that if you aren't booked on to a plane, if you don't have a ticket, do not turn up at the airport.
Emma, thank you very much indeed. Well, I think what this conflict has really underlined is the changing nature of warfare. It's all about aerial missiles, drones, and there are big questions being asked about how well the UK is prepared to fight this kind of war and also defend itself in this kind of war, and if it's doing so in the most economically efficient way. Tom Clark explains.
All wars are expensive, but are the costs of America's attack on Iran financially and logistically unsustainable? Take a look at this. This is Iranian state-affiliated media showcasing vast stockpiles of low-cost but highly lethal Shahed drones. In response to America and Israel's attack on Iran, the regime launched hundreds of these against its attackers and their allies. But there's a huge mathematical mismatch between the cost of Iran's weapons and those used to defend against them. Take the UAE, for example. It's had amazing success in thwarting Iranian missile and drone attacks, claiming to have downed more than 90% of those fired at it in the first 3 days of the conflict. But a Shahed drone costs between $20,000 and $50,000. The missiles used to intercept them between $500,000 and $1.5 million. One analyst estimating it could have cost the UAE up to $750 million to thwart an attack of around 500 Shahed drones. That's 20 to 30 times more than it cost Iran to launch them.
The math clearly favors Iran in this strategy of attrition because they just have, we don't know exactly how many, Shahed drones they might have in their stockpiles, but it's much larger than the combined total of the stockpiles of interceptor missiles that are available. We're now seeing sort of a race between Israel and the United States trying to locate this drone infrastructure, to try to destroy it, to reduce the pressure on these interceptors, versus Iran trying to keep it an active threat.
The UAE says it's got plenty of missile stockpiles to continue to defend itself, but it's been reported that America's allies in the Middle East are desperately trying to replenish their supplies of mainly US-made missile interceptors. The question is, will they be able to do that, given it looks like America may well be running out of ammo too? Take Tomahawk missiles, very effective and very expensive, being launched here from warships off Iran. It's estimated the US military's deployed up to 400 Tomahawk missiles to the Middle East, but that represents 10% of the 4,000-strong US arsenal. Stockpiles of THAAD missiles are thought to be seriously depleted too. America reportedly launching around 150 of them in its 12-day war with Iran in June last year. That represents about a quarter of its 600-plus stockpiles of that weapon.
We are using these interceptors at a rate that's much faster than you can possibly replace them. The problem is that increases your long-term strategic risk, particularly in other theaters.
America, of course, can always withdraw from the Middle East once it's run out of weapons, but analysts warn its peer adversaries are watching. If America depletes its arsenal through campaigns like this, what power would it have to deter Russia or China if they decided to lash out too? Tom Clark, Sky News.
Well, these are the latest pictures, or live pictures, I should say, from Portsmouth. And what you're looking at there is HMS Dragon. That is going to be on its way shortly to Cyprus to try and protect some of the UK military bases out there. It's crewed by more than 200 people, and it's been billed as one of the most capable air defence warships in the world. It could launch 8 missiles, apparently, in under 10 seconds.
It's a Type 45 destroyer. You can see the Dragon there on the front of it. Quite rare for UK Navy ships to have that kind of design on it, HMS Dragon. I have to say, I actually thought this was already on its way. We're on Wednesday. This began Saturday. It is quite a stark snapshot of our preparedness, or lack thereof, that it takes. It's still sitting there.
Yeah.
What are they doing? Loading the bow and arrows to shoot down the missiles. I mean, it is an extraordinary reminder of the state of play. And as Michael Clark was saying already, a French vessel and a Greek vessel will reach Cyprus and RAF Akrotiri before this to help us out in protecting from potential drone or missile attacks. By the way, as we look at the brave men and women of the Navy aboard the ship, that criticism is in no way towards them. What they do is unbelievable, but a sign of the times of our scale of preparedness that this ship is still sitting there still hasn't departed this Wednesday, 5 or so days in.
You can see them boarding as we speak. We'll have more on this after this short break.